you guys, here we are, and it's Tuesday.
Yeah. Whatever that means.
It means it's Tuesday?
Okay. I'm sleepy. We were watching this shit last night, and it's a good movie, but I didn't like it. That's the only way I can describe it.
You still like Midsummer better.
I like Midsummer a lot better.
I like Midsummer too. Like, I think Midsummer is also brilliant, but I tend to like this one better.
This one's got a lot of good... This one's like all tone and mood. Shit happens in it, but it's mostly towards the end. And it's kind of like a puzzle, and they're asking you to solve this puzzle backwards, which I don't like that shit. They're not giving you enough information to work with. And then when it's over, you kind of maybe understand it, but it's too late because dumbass like myself has forgotten half the shit that happened in the first half. So I'm like, ah.
No, I mean, because the first time I saw it, I mean, I figured out what was going on.
First time I saw it, I fell asleep, remember?
Well, I know you did.
Yeah.
We saw it in the theater.
Yeah.
So the first time, it's just one that you have to pay attention to. And like I said, it's a movie that I'm always kind of one of those people. It's like, unless it's just some like mindless popcorn flick, if you're going to watch a movie, watch the fucking movie. Like, pay attention. If you don't pay attention to it, then don't watch it. You know what I'm saying? If you pay attention to it, then you'll figure out what's going on, because everything in there is either foreshadowed or it's something, you know, it's, they talk about it like in conversations and stuff. But like I said, you just have to remember things, you know.
The first half is very slow. All right. To me. Not much is happening, and you're like, why the hell am I watching this? It was amusing when that girl's head got knocked off in the movie theater. Jenny would attest to it. It surprised me that happened. I didn't see that coming. Her head got knocked off, and I fucking laughed. And then
so
people
badass,
got mad at
Tom.
People got mad. Well, it was so.
You're such an edgelord.
See, that's how she's coming in. I didn't like the little girl, and when it happened, I didn't expect it. So my only reaction was to like, I kind of laughed at a surprise. And then they showed the head with all the fucking flies on it, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. But then I started getting relaxed, and I fell asleep right after that. All right.
Yeah.
And I woke up around the time when that woman went crawling through the sky, and out the door. I heard you guys. It was you and who was that? You and Shauna.
Yeah, me and Shauna.
Going, ooh, and that woke me up, and I was looking to see her crawling through the sky. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I saw the very end where they had the damn ceremony at the end, and I was like,
I mean, wow, spoilers in case.
That's some creepy shit. Yeah, that's some creepy shit. But I missed all the good parts.
Yeah, you did.
The first time. First time I missed all the good parts. The second time I go back, and it was still slow. It got better at the
there's a lot of stuff going on that, like I said, you really have to be paying attention, and that's why I really wanted to, and I'm like, Zach is really excited that I'm finally talking about this, because oh, and by the way, thank you, Esther, because Esther sent us Midsummer and Hereditary on Blu-ray, like for Tom's birthday.
Yeah.
And I had been wanting to watch this a second time, because we saw it in the theater. That was the last time I saw it. And then I was like, man, that movie was amazing. I don't think I ever want to watch it ever again, because it made me just feel so weird. And I was just kind of like, ugh, you know what I mean? So I was like, I don't know if I want to see that again.
After she was saying that, I started to get interested in seeing it again.
And so, like, what I did was I didn't watch the movie itself. I was, like, watching all these, like, analysis videos about it. Because then I was like, well, this is kind of like watching it again, except I don't have to, like, watch it again. But then finally I was kind of like, look, I got to watch it again. Like, we got it. Esther sent it to us. And so last night he was like, you want to watch Hereditary? And my stomach kind of went like that. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's watch it. And then it was not as stressful this time, because even though it's been 3 years since I've seen it, the real creepy shit that really, like, bothered me, those images stayed in my brain that whole entire time. Yeah. So I knew what I was going to see. So it's still, like, creepy, but it wasn't, you know, when you see it the first time, you don't know what to expect. You know what I mean? So some of the shit that happens is, like, the imagery is really unsettling. So since I still remembered the shit all these years later, it didn't stress me out as much, but it's still, I liked watching it a second time. This is definitely one, if you liked it the first time, really, really watch it a second time, because there is a lot of, like, foreshadowing and symbolism and all kind of shit that's going on, and you don't necessarily notice it the first time that you watch it, and it will give you, like, a real appreciation of how fucking well put together this fucking movie is. And especially considering this is Ari Aster's first feature-length film.
Yeah.
He'd made a couple short films prior to this, but this was his first one. And the fact that it's this accomplished and like everything relates to everything else, and every single shot, it's very Kubrickian, and you kind of said that too, in the sense that every single shot means something, like the way it's framed and like and it's just like it's really like a work of genius, I think.
Yeah, I don't doubt, you know what I mean, or I'm not going to say that it's a bad movie. No. It's a great movie. I just didn't really like it.
That's fair enough.
A lot of things, a lot of movie is, kind of like your personal tastes and what you're experiencing when you see it. I thought it was too slow. But it did have a lot of really good things going for it. It had a really good score. The way it was shot, you know what I mean? Shot composition and edit was really good. Acting was really good in it.
I mean, the acting is amazing. And like, I think somebody was saying earlier, like, why Toni Collette didn't get an Oscar nom for this. I really have no idea.
Interesting stuff happens in it, but a lot of it's at the end. And I could have taken more of it, It was kind of front-loaded with kind of slow build-up stuff, and I don't need that much build-up, Some people do, but I didn't. To me, it really didn't get interesting until the little girl's head got knocked off, and then the seances. That's when it started to get kind of interesting. But it seemed like it took an hour to get to that. It probably didn't.
But the thing about it, though,
just seemed like it took a long time.
And I think I appreciated this more the second time, although I loved it the first time. I think I appreciated more the second time because I knew what was coming and I knew what the whole conceit of it was. I really thought, so the second time I watched it, it was in a way, even though like the imagery wasn't as upsetting because I remembered it from last time, but it was, in a way, it was even more dread-inducing because I knew exactly what was happening with the cult, and coming to the realization that the cult and the grandmother who's dead has been essentially controlling this family's entire lives. Yeah. And they're not aware of it. And like it's like Rosemary's Baby in the sense that like everybody's in on it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, and everything they do is manipulated and they're not aware of it. Like they're trying to break out of this curse or whatever, this cycle, and they can't do it because no matter what they do, the cult is there and they are like manipulating things to the end that they want. Yeah. And so, and in the second time you watch it, you really pick that up a lot more than the first time.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of any kind of cult.
Yeah.
It wasn't until she had to tell me this kind of stuff. I'm like, who is this? Why? What? And it was like the old man that like, what is that? What is going on?
It ain't the goat.
It ain't the goat. Yeah, I'm like that guy. What the fuck is going on here? Who's this old lady? Who's that?
He's
Why?
like, I don't mean to laugh at you, but you do sound just like that old man in Jurassic Park. All those years ago. I'm sure that dude is dead by now because he was like fucking 100.
Some of these artistic movies, they don't really just come out and say anything. You have to figure it out for yourself.
Although this one does. I think it's really weird because...
It's so subtle it goes right over my head.
Not really. You just have to listen to their conversations. And like I said, I think that that's kind of good because the first time you watch it, you listen to the conversations and stuff, but it doesn't really come together until the end. Yeah. But then the second time you watch it, knowing what you know about the end and about the cult and about what they've been trying to do the whole time, actually even before Charlie, the little girl, was born, or even before Peter, the son, was born, the grandmother's been trying to do this shit for like a generation or two, right? And has been failing. And so this cult has been manipulating this family and they essentially have no control over their actions. And so knowing that going in, which I did the second time, every single conversation, every single everything, it just kind of ties into the whole bigger narrative. Like I say, everything is interrelated. Like I said, it's almost like, it's like Rosemary's Baby, but like on a bigger scale, because everything, you're like paranoid. Everybody is in on the shit.
Rosemary's Baby, though, telegraphed itself. Everything was very obvious.
Yeah.
This one is not. It's a lot more subtle. You have to pay close attention. And I'm not the kind of guy that really pays close attention to what's going on that much in these movies. If it's not something that's really pulled me in early, my mind will start wandering. I'll start thinking about other things and wondering how long the movie's going to take, that kind of stuff. It's just like I said, I got that 5-10 minute rule. If I'm not really sucked into the story very early on, then I'm never really going to get into it. And a lot of it has to do with disorientation. If the story disorients me early on, I just kind of reject it and start tuning it out. I think that's what happens.
Well, I mean...
I kind of lose interest in it.
Well, coming from my point of view, like I said, and maybe it's more because I'm a writer and I'm kind of more into this kind of stuff.
I interpret it as poor writing. Not genius, but I can't follow the story because it's poorly written. Because there's a lot of movies that are like that. A lot of shitty movies they're so poorly written you can't follow the story. So sometimes a good movie will fool me. When I first saw this in the theater, I just thought it was poorly written. I didn't think there was anything to it. So I fell asleep in it.
It's not poorly written though.
No,
it's actually
written real well.
It's actually brilliantly written.
But,
But if you're not going to pay attention to it, then it might as well be.
Right. So I didn't get pulled into it
But that's not the movie's fault though.
It's not kind of it is. I think
not really.
It's not for a general audience.
No. But I mean they never said that it was.
Right. Okay. Never mind.
Well, I think you kind of come at things where it's like you think everything should be for a general audience, but I don't think everything should be for a general audience. People should just make the shit they want to make.
Yeah.
Like if it's
not for a general audience,
if some people
not gonna like it.
Well, yeah, I know, but like I said, the fact that that Ari Aster made this.
Yeah.
It's like, for me and people like me that would like it, I don't care if other people don't like it or not. I thought it was amazing. And, if other people don't like it, that's fine. It's like, and horror is subjective too, because a lot of people, like I said, I saw this movie and it's just like, it really, really bothered me. And like horror movies don't usually bother. I love horror movies, but they don't usually scare me. This one really, I don't know. I guess it just gave me really, really bad anxiety. And like I had nightmares about it and stuff like that, which never happens. And I was like fucked up about it, but I was also like happy about it because I was kind of like, man, that really did what it said it was going to do. So, good job there. And I hadn't seen a movie in a long time that had done that, like not really since I was a kid, that made me feel like that. But then again, that's what made me not want to watch it a second time because it made me feel so bad the first time because it's like, it's not even so much, I don't know. There's just so much in this that's so unsettling. I don't even know if it was so much like the creeping dread and like paranoia of being watched and like not having any control over anything in your life, but not being aware of that. And as I said, it's like really, but I mean, a lot of the imagery in it is really creepy. Yeah, like the girl's head and shit like that. That's like that was fucked up. And the way that they edited that was fucking amazing because everyone was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because it just like, here it is. They just threw it right in your face, which they hardly ever show fucked up, like dead, decapitated kids in fucking movies, right?
Well, she was 13, I think, wasn't she?
Yeah, 13. Well, it's still a kid.
Yeah.
So then they just kind of like threw it in your face after they didn't really, there wasn't like a lot of creepy imagery going up to that. But it's just like, I thought the atmosphere of dread was like really well done. I was watching the documentary about the making of it. And what I didn't realize was that the outside of the Graham's house, that was a real house. It was in Utah. But the insides, much like Stanley Kubrick, the inside of the house was entirely built on sets. And they did that so they could pull walls out and get like particular angles and shit. Because one of the visual motifs, like I said, was Annie. She's the artist and she makes all these miniatures and stuff. And that's kind of her way of dealing with the trauma, of her past life, like her relationship with her mom, like her dad and her brother dying, like killing themselves and shit like that. And the possibility that she might be carrying, that she might be mentally ill as well. And that's kind of her way of distancing herself by making everything small, like she has control over it. But then the fact that he's taking it back one level to a macro level, where it's like now when you're seeing the actual movie, he shoots everything as though he's shooting it in a dollhouse, because he's making it seem like there's a much larger force outside of these people that's controlling their actions and they're not aware of it. And that's, you know what I mean? So like just the fact that he did that and that he built the whole entire fucking house on a soundstage just so he could explore that visual motif, it's like, that's fucking amazing. And the fact that this movie only cost $10 million to make is also quite amazing. And it made 80 million. So this is actually like A24's, as far as I know, it's their highest grossing movie. I mean, you gotta, even if you don't love every single A24 movie, everything they put out is interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like an art house movies.
Yeah, and you know, even like I said, I haven't loved every single one, but most of the A24 ones I've seen are good. Like Saint Maud was fucking great. I reviewed that not too long ago. You know, Midsummer was great. The Lighthouse was great, although that's
weird too.
That was a weird ass movie.
I think studios like this though are going to be the way of the future anyway.
But that's good. Because, I mean, that's good for me
because they're more creative than the mainstream studio. They're taking risks that other studios wouldn't take.
Right.
I didn't like this one. I liked Midsummer a lot more.
I definitely want to watch Midsummer again.
Midsummer's it's a linear story.
Although Midsummer, you could when we first saw Midsummer in the theater, I thought you would think that was way slower than Hereditary because I thought it was slower than Hereditary. But I don't mind stuff being slow. Yeah. That's not a criticism.
To me, it was a lot more understandable.
Because I'm a patient person. Yeah. You know what I mean?
To me, it was a lot more understandable. It was a lot more exciting, I think. Like, you said that this one had, like, feelings of dread and it was emotionally evocative to you. To me, it didn't evoke any emotion.
Yeah, well, some people have that, but like I said, horror is subjective.
Yeah.
This one, maybe it's because, you know, the accident where Charlie gets killed, that was like based on a real accident that happened in Georgia in 2004.
Okay.
So somebody did actually, it wasn't a kid, but it was a guy, and he did actually get killed. He was a passenger in a car, and he was drunk, and he hung his head out the window. And also maybe it's because I have a younger sister, and so maybe I thought to myself, what would have happened if, like, when I was a teenager and I was driving my sister somewhere, because she's about the same, she's, 7 years younger than me, and what if that had happened, and like and it's like, that's horrifying enough, like, even thinking about that, but then his fucking reaction to it was like, I loved that sequence, as horrific as it was, where, like, after the accident, he's just like sitting there and he kind of looks in the rear view and then he's like, no, like, he doesn't want to look, like, he can't believe it. And then, like, he just goes home with the headless body in the back because he doesn't know what else to do. It's like he's in total shock. And then he just, like, and then they kind of cut to him just, like, laying in bed with his eyes open, and then you just hear Tony Collette, like, screaming outside. I was like, can you imagine finding your headless daughter in the back seat of a car? Oh my God. And I was just kind of like, so that whole thing, and like I said, maybe it's because I have a younger sister myself. I have two younger brothers also. And it's like, I could put myself into his shoes, like, what, like, you could never fix that. You could never get over that. You could never, holy shit. And then, like, to have your mom blame you, even though it was an accident, really, because she blamed him as well for it. And then later her saying, like, the shit to him, like, it's like, I didn't want to be your mother and I tried to abort you and all this other kind of shit. That's, like, fucking horrifying. So I think that it depends on your family situation too, maybe, like, because I think that, as I said, horror is kind of subjective, so what scares one person isn't going to scare another person.
What you're talking about did nothing for me. I didn't even really notice that.
Yeah.
Funny.
Well, like I said, that's why, because everybody has different triggers. Everybody has different things that bother them. Everybody has different, and I have certain things in movies that pretty much always creep me out, and I'm not entirely sure why. I am really, really super creeped out in movies by doppelganger kind of shit. And so that's why, like, David Lynch kind of stuff, like, where it's one person's over here and they're in the same place at the same time and shit like that, that really, really bothers me. And that scene from Lake Mungo, like where she has the video and, like, she sees herself, like, all the it's like that fucking freaks me out, and I don't really know why. Like, I've tried to kind of figure out why that is, like, why I'm so upset by doppelgangers in movies, but that's, like, one of the things that creeps me out the most, and I don't know why.
The only scene that was like that weirded me out was the one from The Tenant. when he was looking back.
Yeah, see, that really bothered me too.
Roman Polanski looks back
and then he looks and he sees himself in the window.
Back at
and there was a scene like that in 1408 too, like John Cusack looking out the window and seeing himself. Like, and the thing that that every time that happens in a movie, I'm just like, ugh.
I think that had a lot to do with how old I was at the time that I saw it too. Like
maybe
because I've seen stuff similar to that since then and recently, and it doesn't do anything.
I mean, it depends on how it's done too. Because I mean, I've seen it done in movies where I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Yeah. But if it's in a good movie and it has like some context behind it, then it'll really bother me. And I'm glad you brought up The Tenant because that scene in The Tenant really freaked me out. Other than this and the scene where he finds that fucking tooth in the hole in the wall. Yeah,
that whole movie was a trip. Although. One person we recommend to see it in the comment section, they were like, boy, that was a waste of my time. So I think it has to do with how old you are when you see it and the context of the time in which you see it. Because there was nothing like that back in the 80s. It was a good movie for the 80s.
And as I said, it's
kind of slow and you're not really sure what the hell's going on, but it sure was fucking weird. But that's another story.
That's why I try not to get on people's case too much about... if somebody, if I saw Hereditary, I loved Hereditary, it freaked me the fuck out. I was really anxious about seeing it again, although I really wanted to. I watched a bunch of analysis videos again, so I got into it just like I got into The Shining, man, with all the fucking shit that was going on.
It has elements to it.
It does.
The Shining is a lot better. I mean...
Yeah, well, they're different movies. Like I said, this one's almost kind of more like a Kubrickian take on Rosemary's Baby.
In some way, kind of like that. Yeah, it's like it's as if Kubrick was doing Rosemary's Baby.
Or doing something like that. You know what I mean? So, I
just felt like I was swimming through most of it. Like I didn't have enough information to really follow the story. And it was probably sneaking me information in through the side.
It was.
But
I said, it wasn't really sneaky because a lot of it was just in conversations and stuff.
Yeah, but then you're asking me to remember certain facts from a conversation and then relating it to something else that happens later, and I don't tend not to do that. Especially not if it's not something that has to do with supernatural stuff. I'm kind of taking each conversation as its own thing. It just didn't really come across it came across as slow and not linear and kind of nonsensical. At the end, certain things were kind of made sense, but to me it seemed like much ado about nothing. It wasn't scary to me. There was a couple of effects that they used in the scenes that I thought were kind of cool looking, like the woman crawling through the sky or crawling through the air in the room.
The best thing about that was that there was no sound.
Yeah, the ghost. She saw the ghost of her mom in there. That was a pretty good effect.
Yeah, I liked that. That was
the dude
creepy.
Standing there grinning in the darkness.
That was also super creepy.
And then the little the mannequin with the weird human head on it. But that was it. It wasn't worth watching the movie to see those things. You know what I mean? And the story to me wasn't very scary, and I didn't really relate to any of the characters. I didn't find any of the characters was likable. I think it might have had something to do with it too. I didn't like the little girl. I didn't like the mom. I didn't like the dad. I didn't like the guy. I didn't like the boy. I didn't like any of those people. So I think I didn't really care what happened to him. That might have been what it was.
But like I said, that's you though.
Yeah.
I mean, I really dug this movie.
Yeah.
And it's
to taste. You know what I mean?
It's actually probably my favorite horror movie of the 21st century so far.
Yeah.
Just because
I'm not condemning your opinion on it. Don't look at it that way. I'm just it seems like you're kind of like taking a personal offense to it or something.
Well, no, because sometimes though, when I talk about if I like a movie and I kind of talk about it, you kind of just shit on it
no.
It's not for a general audience. And you kind of sound like that, all condescending and stuff.
No,
like I'm a dumbass for liking it or something.
No, that's not what I mean.
Thank you, Phil.
Kind of like the other way around. You're a writer and you're real smart and you're patient and you're looking into stuff. The general audience really isn't there to have to
but
do work and,
like I said,
be a detective.
All movies aren't made for them. It's it's not my fault if you're a dumbass and you can't follow stories. You know what I mean? And that's not the movie's fault either. It's because all the information that you needed was in there. And, and it wasn't a hidden. It wasn't like it wasn't like a David Lynch situation where you actually had to kind of interpret everything. This wasn't like that. Like, all the information was there. You just had to listen to everyone's conversations, relate things to other things that people had said earlier, just like you would do if you were reading a novel or anything like that. It's not like anything unusual.
Right.
It wasn't, I didn't think you necessarily had to figure anything out. It's like it unrolled kind of the information slowly because, like I said, the first time I went to see it, I didn't want to know, like, I didn't watch the trailer and nothing. Because I like going into horror not knowing anything about it. I like the experience of just letting it come at me and, like, me, like, figure out what's going on in it. I don't have to know what kind of movie it's going to be ahead of time. I don't need to know that. I'm the same with books and everything like that. I don't read the fucking... the back. I don't do any of that stuff. If you weren't
there with me watching that thing, all right, and I didn't have you there to explain to me what was going on, I would have gotten halfway through that and not understood it.
Yeah.
All right, so just...
But like I said, I didn't think it was really, like all of that hard to figure out.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to figure out.
I didn't think it was.
It's very subtle the way the story is told. It's told in kind of an unconventional way. It's not the way that a movie usually communicates. It's just, more like The Shining. The Shining is real vague about what the hell's going on, too.
But see, that's what
the book, it kind of helps you understand what's happening.
Yeah, but I mean, we've kind of talked about this before. That was the thing that I liked about The Shining, and actually I thought that was what you liked about The Shining, too, is that...
Well, I read the book, though.
Well, yeah, so did I, but... Yeah. Honestly, I think I saw the movie before I read the book.
Yeah, I saw the movie before I read the book, and I didn't understand it.
Oh, I did.
I didn't really understand it.
But, and I was a kid when I saw it.
It scared me, but I didn't understand.
Yeah, it scared the crap out of me.
But I didn't really understand I didn't really understand what was going on. I knew ghosts had something to do with it.
I liked that Kubrick chose not to explain things. Yeah. Like I said, a lot of times, and this is, I've brought this up a lot. I don't like horror that explains too much, because if you explain too much, it's not scary anymore. It's not scary anymore. Unknown stuff is scarier than known stuff. Don't explain everything. Let people come to their own conclusions, I think is better. I think it's a more satisfying experience watching a story that is not just spoon-fed to you. You know what I mean? I don't really like movies that just explain everything or give you all the information and like just say, oh, well, this happened because of this, and I would have succeeded if it wasn't for you meddling kids type of thing, where you're like a Bond thing where the villain describes this big elaborate plot like at the end. I don't like that. It's like really, I find that really insulting, like condescending, like I'm too dumb to figure it out on my own. So I don't really like movies that explain things. Over-explain themselves. It's like you can err on the wrong side of that too, like where it's you're refraining from explaining so much that like no one knows what the fuck you're talking about. But I've very, very rarely seen that happen. And honestly, sometimes when you leave things ambiguous, in certain ways that's good, because then people can bring their own shit to it and it's more like a personal experience. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. But that said, I didn't think this movie was ambiguous, really. I mean, it explained itself pretty well. You didn't know what was going on as it was unfolding, but by the end, if you'd paid attention to all the shit that was going on prior, then it was pretty clear what was going on. The only thing I didn't catch the first time that I caught this time was that I didn't realize, and like I said, spoiler alert, too late now probably, but I didn't realize that Charlie was housing the demon the whole time. The demon was in there the whole time. That's why she was like acting so weird and shit.
Yeah, I never would have got that.
I only figured that out like the second time I watched it. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Because I was like, well, why didn't the demon go in her before? But I was like, no, the demon went in her like when she was born, pretty much.
Yeah, well, they said that at the end, the priestess said that they got rid of the fucked up female body and put you in the male body you deserve to be in, type of deal.
Well, because the only reason that they put the demon in Charlie was because when Peter was born, the older kid, Annie was not speaking to her mother and kept Peter away from her. They wanted Peter. Yeah. Actually, they at first wanted her brother, like Annie's brother, But she says in the grief group he committed suicide when he was 16 because he was...
I think we lost connection. Oh.
It says reconnection successful.
All right.
Is it going? Are we back again?
We'll see.
It looks like we had a little hiccup.
Yeah. I'm getting a commercial now. I think we got connections back.
Is it?
Maybe. We'll see. I got to...
I mean, nothing crashed or anything.
We're back.
All right.
We're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Had a little hiccup. But
storming out here.
Yeah, we got to. There's a storm outside.
There's always a storm outside this time of year.
Yeah, yeah, and this time of day too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they just basically put him in there as a placeholder until they could, manipulate everything to a point where they could get at Peter and put the demon in him, because that's what they were supposed to be doing. So everything that happens in the movie is engineered by the cult.
Yeah.
Is engineered by the demon, like with the demon's help. You know what I mean? Like even the accident that kills Charlie. If you look, like when he first passes the utility pole that she busts her head off on, there's the Paimon symbol is on there. Like when he passes it. So, and when he comes back, like the reason that he swerves, there's a deer in the road. So obviously the cult people put it there so he would swerve. So they engineered everything to...
Yeah, see, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, and so everything was engineered to make Peter vulnerable and to get rid of his soul. Like all this trauma, all this kind of shit, not only to get rid of Charlie so Paimon could have like the male body that he wanted, but also... so that the whole family would fragment and he would be left like the only one, and he'd be so fucked up that he'd be vulnerable to demon possession, essentially. So that's kind of like so everybody was in on it. And I think I've seen some theories too, that even the girl at the party that made Peter go into the room with the bong or whatever, that maybe even she was in the cult, or at least was influenced by the cult, because they had a demon on their side, right, too, so they could manipulate events. So pretty much everything in this is manipulated. So they were fated from the beginning for this to happen, no matter what they did. Like, so Annie tried to fight against it, but her fighting against it, ironically, put her, like, right back into the clutches of the cult without her realizing it, because she didn't really know about it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like the whole shit with that woman that coming across her at the grief group and said, "Lo, we need to go to the seance, and here, have this piece of paper that has this thing on it so you can talk to your daughter again," which was a demon invocation. Obviously, that's what that was. They were just like trying to get her to vulnerable to it so she would like say the shit and bring the demon out so it could get into Peter. So it's like every single thing in this was calculated. And watching it a second time, it's like every single time like somebody said something, I was like, oh, motherfucker, oh, yeah, because it's like knowing it the second time, it's like you see all the little clues. Even all the shit like with Peter in the classrooms, every single classroom discussion that they're having is something to do with what's going on. Like they talk about Oedipus, they talk about like all this, I think it's like a Sophocles play, and he talks about like all these things about fate, you know what I mean, where... you know, you're prophesied to do something, and like no matter what you do, you can't get out of it because it's not in your control. It's like under the god's control or whatever. So everything in this like has a meaning like that, which I thought was like super, super cool. So like I said, that's really the reason I love like fucking movies like that. You guys have heard me talk about like fucking Mulholland Drive, right? Which is kind of like a similar kind of thing in the sense that it's sort of like a puzzle, or it needs to be kind of interpreted more than this movie. I think this movie's pretty straightforward generally, but I love stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are you laughing at?
You.
Well, I don't know what else to say about it, you know what I mean? Me watching it, I didn't get all that detail. If I didn't have Jenny with me, I wouldn't have understood any of it. I don't think. No, I was like, what the hell's this? Who's this? What's going on? And I didn't really notice any of the...
connections.
I didn't notice the connections. I didn't notice the demons going in and out of people's bodies. I didn't see any demons. I just saw some lights.
It's light. Well, that was the representation.
Yeah.
Was that weird blue light?
Yeah, see.
That they kept seeing.
I'd have put horns on it and a fucking tail and a pitchfork and shit, let you know that, yeah, that's a demon. Because to me, it just looked like a fucking wave of light, and just a little pixie thing went in there. A lot of it was just like, I don't know. It didn't communicate very well to me. It wasn't my style. But, you know, you liked it. And it's a well-made movie, so, you know. Okay.
And like I
It's just
said,
not really for me.
I don't like stuff that's like really, really obvious.
Yeah, I that shit would be obvious to me, and there'd be a comedy in it and stuff like that too. Probably. Then I'd understand it a lot more, and then you'd have some dude commenting on it. You know what I mean? In the story, some guy saying, "I know there's a demon in here somewhere. Do you see him?" That kind of stuff. You know. Had to be some kind of somebody to explain what the hell's going on.
Another shot I didn't notice too, like the first time I watched it, but I noticed this the second time, was that when they show like the outside of the house, like right toward the end, like right before Peter goes and becomes Paimon or whatever, it's like outside of the house is all the little naked cult members, like down in the yard. And it's like I didn't notice it the first time, but the second time I'm like, oh motherfucker, look, they're like all around, like they're closing in, like they were all around the house.
I couldn't even see it when she said something about it.
I was watching,
I had to see trees.
there was little people, there was like naked people,
I don't doubt you.
all around.
Just I couldn't see it.
Yeah, that was all the cult members. They were like closing in, like getting ready for the ceremony.
Okay.
So it's just kind of like, I love the way they did too. A lot of the shots that they had earlier in the film where they would kind of linger like on a dark corner, and like for a second you'd think like, is there something in there? Like what? Because they were priming you, like there wasn't necessarily something in the shadows every single time, but they were priming you later to like kind of get you, oh, there's nothing there. But then later on they did put some shit in there. So I think that was like pretty genius also. Like I think it's funny because the first time we saw it in the theater, and I was like watching another review where they said like the kind of infamous shot where Peter gets out of bed and Tony Collette is like up there in the fucking corner, like up at the ceiling, and it's like really dark. And some people, depending on what theater you saw it at or what TV you watched at, some people didn't notice her up there. Yeah. I saw her in the theater, like, our theater was like bright enough that I actually did see her, but I didn't see her at first. I was just kind of like looking, going, what's it? And I was like, oh shit, like she's up there. And it was that kind of thing. So, a lot of people didn't see her until like two or three times later. Yeah,
I'm guarantee you, the people that saw that in the movie theater, watch this on television, didn't even see 1/4 of the shit that you saw.
Well, yeah, they probably didn't.
No, and they didn't even...
Because I pay attention.
And they didn't understand any of that shit.
Because I pay attention.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not my fault people are dumbasses. It's really not. That's not my problem.
That shit went all way above their head. Way over there. That was just like we were watching The Lighthouse in that same studio. I liked the fucking movie. I knew they were fucking with me through the whole...
That movie is batshit crazy, and I love it.
Crazy as fuck.
I don't know if I'd call it a horror movie exactly, but...
Motherfucker was crazy ass movie.
It was fucking crazy.
And then at the end, when the dude
it.
fucking looks into the lighthouse, into the fucking light on the lighthouse, it goes, ah, and then ends. People are going, oh, and then they fucking walk.
What are they?
I liked it though. I liked it.
What are they teaching kids these days?
They were
well, like I said, every movie's not for everybody. Obviously, like there's a lot of movies I don't like either. I don't shit on other people for like liking particular movies that I don't particularly like because everybody's different. Yeah. But it's like I really don't like. I don't like it when, because one thing I've heard, because like I said, I'm a big David Lynch fan, and one thing that I've heard from some assholes is that, David Lynch just makes these movies and they're just weird. They don't mean for anything. Weird sake, and he's just like fucking with all of y'all. And then he's kind of like picking on people like me. He's like, oh, you guys are finding meaning where there isn't any, or he's just like pulling stuff out of his ass, and he is absolutely not pulling stuff out of his ass.
No, he didn't mean something.
It does mean something. It's like it's like, look, it's like just because, like I said, it's not my fault if you're a dumbass. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, that doesn't mean I'm not pretending to be smart just to make you feel bad about being a dumbass. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not pretending that I understand a David Lynch movie just to make you feel stupid. Not you. I'm just like saying the general you. Mm-hmm. But some people apparently do think that. They're so insecure about their dumbassery that they will accuse people of making stuff up like to seem smarter just to make them feel bad. I have seen that happen. And I'm just kind of like, nobody's doing that, dude.
No, David Lynch stuff means stuff.
It does. Now, sometimes what it means is open to interpretation.
It's all meta. It's shit happening outside the film, and it's the film looking back in on the film. There's all kinds of shit.
The thing about it is that, one, he works from a very dream-like logic perspective, but he is absolutely referring to other movies too, outside of his. So it's not like so weird, like he's just, he's referring to like some weird obscure shit. It's like sometimes he's just referring to other movies or, the context of other movies. And if you haven't seen that other movie, then you'll think that he's just like pulling stuff out of his butt, but he's totally not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's all it is.
Yeah, but that little scene where the cult members were standing around outside the house, I guarantee you 90% of the people did not see that on first viewing. But I didn't see it after you.
I didn't see it on the first viewing. I saw it on the second viewing.
I didn't see it when you even mentioned it. I couldn't see it. Because when they show that shot, you kind of your eyes are naturally drawn into looking at the sky. I was looking at the sky and the tree
or in
line,
the house,
and in the house a little bit, but I didn't see the people there. Even although I believe you that they're there, there was a lot of stuff that was probably there that you didn't see. If you go through it, you probably see all kinds of little things in there.
Well, yeah.
But,
and there are videos.
70s album cover where you're getting high and you're looking at the album cover.
Well, there are videos on YouTube like pointing out. Yeah, like actually, I saw one today that said that one of the cult members was in a certain scene that I hadn't noticed them in.
Yeah.
But see, that's what I like about that kind of shit, where it's like they're just like, we're not even gonna. I don't even care if like you notice it or not. I'm just putting it there, and because sometimes your subconscious might notice it, and it makes you nervous, but you don't know why because you don't see it like with your conscious mind.
And shit.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Well, there's like way worse like filmmakers that you could emulate. Just saying.
That's what he's doing.
But he has his own thing, though. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't really. I mean, Hereditary is sort of it's not Kubrickian in the sense that, because I feel like Kubrick had a real his shit is very kind of like emotionally cold, or like, you know what I mean, he kind of keeps the characters at arm's length a little bit. I don't like Hereditary, not so much like that. Hereditary was very much putting your face into these people's like raw emotions, you know what I mean? Like, look at this grief, look at this, so it was like a different kind of thing, but he has some similarities in the way that in the style that he shoots things and the artifice of it. But as I said, the artifice in this movie was in service to the theme of the movie, because Midsommar didn't really have that so much. Yeah. That was kind of more like nature, but also it was like trippy because they kept seeing like LSD, like all the trees were swirling and shit like that, like very subtly in the background.
I liked. I
want to watch that again too.
I said it several times where I liked Midsommar better than this one.
Yeah. Well, some people do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, of the two, I loved Midsommar too. I thought that was also a great movie. But I feel like Ari Aster, we'll see what he does next, but one of the things that he seems just from these two movies, one of the things that he seems really interested in, like I said, is fate, and if you can avoid it, because it's a really big deal in this one. But another thing that I noticed in Midsommar was that, the mural that he shows, like, at the beginning of Midsommar, like, during the opening credits even, that mural shows every single thing that happens in the movie. So, again, leading everybody to believe that the characters are kind of doomed from the start. This is what's going to happen to them, and there's nothing that they can do about it. So Ari Aster seems like really, really into the idea of a fate that you can't avoid, which I dig that, because I've written some kind of stories like that too, because that's like a really horrifying prospect to feel like no matter what you do, you're going to have the inevitable is going to happen to you, even if you try to avoid it. Like I said, it's a very Oedipus type of thing where it's like, oh, there's prophecy that you're going to kill your dad and marry your mom. And he's like, oh, I better get the fuck out of here to like not have that happen. But then the fact of him leaving out of there, like, made it happen anyway, like when he didn't like mean for it to. So that kind of shit is like pretty scary. So I think that, that seems to be a pet theme of his.
And they're talking about Midsommar. I liked Midsommar better too, because I'm more familiar with the topic too. Yeah. Because it had all that folklore stuff. It's kind of like Wicker Man, and so I was kind of more familiar with neo-paganism and paganism and shit.
Yeah, so you were coming at it from something that was more
from an angle where I knew more about it. Jenny's big into this witches and witchcraft stuff, so maybe she's more, but she pays closer attention than I do. to certain things, and I think she's a little more wired for things that are more slow paced and more intricate. I'm not really wired that way. I like fast paced, big splashy stories, theatrical. Fucking the dialogue's fucking real clear cut. It's trying to give you a very easy to understand message, and it's playing with you that way visually and it's more visually stimulating and stuff. If not, I'm just gonna get kind of relaxed and zone out. My mind's gonna start wandering around. I'll probably fall asleep. I fell asleep on this one in the theater. I stayed awake the second time. It did get better. More stuff started to happen that kind of kept me interested, but like she said, half of it I didn't even know. I didn't even know that it happened. I needed her to tell me that it happened. I didn't understand.
Yeah, because there's a lot of connections between everything that happens in there. And if you're not, like I said, there's nothing in there is wasted. Everything that's in there connects to something else.
Right.
Thank you, No Need for Me Too. Made it in time to drop a super chat. Ended up showing late last few streams. That's okay.
Thank you very much, bro.
Yeah, he also said OG Wicker Man with Christopher Lee was so good. I know, I love that movie. Though I like the Nicolas Cage one. I still can't set. I've watched like scenes from it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'll have to be in the mood.
I saw it. I saw the Nicolas Cage one. I liked it. It was fucking a shit show. It was a shit show, but that didn't mean I didn't like it. I liked it.
Well, I've liked plenty of movies that are shit shows. Is it an entertaining shit show?
Yes.
Then all right.
Yes.
It looks entertaining.
Actually, we ought to see it again.
We should sit and we'll get some drinks and watch it one night. It'll probably be hilarious.
It's very different from the first one.
Yeah, that's so I've heard.
It's a lot more fast paced. It's dumber, more exciting. It was really kind of like something more I would like.
Yeah,
it is
because it's dumber.
Yeah, dumber, more exciting, and fucking Nicolas Cage cages the fuck out through it all the time. No, not the bees, not the bees. And they put his fucking head in the damn bee bucket and shit. It's fucking funny.
Bee bucket.
It's more like Midsummer. But Midsummer is actually done a lot better.
Well, yeah.
Midsummer's
I don't think anyone's going to argue with you on that score.
Midsummer is real creepy.
Phil asked who liked The Omen. I do. I love The Omen. Yeah. I've seen it a million times.
Actually, the whole series is good.
Yeah, actually, I quite like all of them.
Yeah, the final conflict is great.
Thorn Cezanne says, not really scary, but artsy is Hexan. Actually, that's a silent movie. Yeah. And actually, I did a really long blog post on that like several years ago when I was going on like a big silent movie kick. And that movie has some like kind of disturbing imagery in it for as fucking old as it is. When it came out, 1921, something like that. But yeah, it's almost kind of like a weird like quasi documentary about witchcraft, but then kind of a movie too. It's very strange. I kind of dug it though. I was like, and a lot of the imagery in it was like creepy. And I've seen imagery from that movie like turn up in music videos and shit like that without anybody like saying where it came from. Because I'm like, hey, that's Hexan. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But this is a good movie. Knowing what the movie and story is about helps, I think. It helps dumbasses like myself. I needed her to tell me what is going on. You know? Who's this woman? You know, that kind of shit. There's a cult. There's a cult? Really? You know, okay.
Yeah.
Because it's not real clearly spelled out to somebody like me, I guess. I kind of come from a different traditions of storytelling traditions, I guess. To me, like I said, for a general audience, horror for a general audience, that would be Poltergeist. There are no shades of gray in Poltergeist. But
I also love that movie.
Yeah, I like that one too. But it's like a commercial.
Yeah,
you know
kind of.
I mean? A child could follow that.
I like all kinds of horror.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
This is not like
I'm not super picky.
This is more along the lines of something like The Shining. But it's even more difficult.
It's more cerebral. It's a cerebral horror film. Right. Which I like those.
Because if you saw The Shining, you could read the Stephen King book and see what it is Kubrick is talking about. You know that there's ghosts on the other side that are doing all this. The story makes a lot more sense if you understood what was going on in the spirit world from the book. But Kubrick did it the right way. That wouldn't make a good movie. He just did it from the viewpoint of what would the wife, what was her name? Fucking
Wendy.
What would Wendy? How would Wendy experience all this? Because she didn't see any of the ghosts until the very end. She didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what that's what that book would have been like from Wendy's point of view.
I think that was Kubrick's
that was the best way to do that.
Best decision was one, to take out all the exposition that was in the book.
Right.
Which I'm not shitting on it because I love that book.
Oh, it's a great book. It's
but
just, for a movie,
you don't want exposition. And turning the hedge animals into a maze.
Yeah.
Two best decisions he made.
Yeah. Well, they didn't have the technology to do the hedge animals back then anymore.
And when they did the hedge animals in Stephen King's miniseries version, it looked stupid.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's going to be really hard to make that not look stupid. In the book, it was creepy because you were imagining it. But when you
saw them move in the book.
Yeah, well, that's another thing.
It was only when your back was turned did they move.
And that's creepy.
Else. Yeah.
But when they show it in a movie, not so much.
You saw them move at the very, very end when they got up on the house and the house was getting ready to blow up. He said it looked like they were moving, but like a flicker book.
Yeah.
And it was in the night, in the darkness. It was pretty cool. But yeah, it's exactly how you do it. The only difference, though, Kubrick said this is a horror movie. Somebody's got to have to die. So they had to kill Halloran. Yeah. And in the book, he survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I said, I liked Halloran as a character, but I respect Kubrick's decision to kill him because, like I said, I really liked... It made it scarier because it's like you've been following Halloran through this whole fucking shit, and it's like, I gotta go get him, and it's like he had the Shining and he had the message, and he like goes through hell and high water to get up there, and then he gets killed immediately. Yeah. And I was just kind of like, it just made the power of the hotel like that much scarier because it's like, look at all the shit this dude went through, and it was for nothing. No, well, it wasn't for nothing because he saved him. He did save him because he got the snowcat there, and they left in that. So it's like it wasn't,
wasn't for nothing.
It wasn't for nothing. But yeah, but I
gave his life to save him.
I did like that. Yeah. But so Thorn Cezanne says I love cerebral horror. Gore bores me after a while. Yeah, it's like
and
there's
like this.
Yeah, there's only so much. I mean, I like gore. I'm a gore person. It depends on what mood I'm in, really. I don't really, there's certain genres of horror that I like more than others, but if a lot of people recommend a horror movie to me, I'll give it a go. It doesn't really matter what kind it is, even if it's like found footage or something. Because I know a lot of people's like, oh, I don't like found footage. But then I can think of like at least 10 movies right now that were found footage that I really liked. So
this one is very complicated. If I were to watch it a couple more times and probably understand all the angles, I'd probably get an appreciation for it. But it's not a fun watch, not from my point of view.
Well,
for Jenny it was, but not for me.
Well, no, it wasn't a fun watch, but that's why I liked it, because I was like, it's a horror movie. I was like, and like I said, it's definitely not an enjoyable horror movie to watch. I mean, some horror movies are, like if it's just like a fun slasher or whatever. This one is a lot more heavy.
It's kind of like the Joker of horror movies.
That's actually probably a good way of putting it. It's going to kind of make you feel crappy afterward.
Yeah. The Joker's a masterpiece, but it's not that fun to watch. You're like,
you got to really be in the right mood for it. That's what I'm saying. But like I said, since it's a horror movie, the fact that it made me feel bad was good. You know what I mean? Because it's like that's kind of what I wanted a horror movie to do. And one hadn't done that for me in a long time. So as much as it pissed me off, because I was like, man, I really didn't want to feel like this today. Like after I saw it, because it was really unpleasant. It was an unpleasant experience. But on the other hand, I was also kind of like, fucking awesome, man. I haven't had a fucking horror movie do that in like forever. Like give me nightmares and shit. Awesome.
I got to truthfully say, though, that I didn't really have any emotional reaction to it.
Well, I know you. I know you did.
Not Midsommar I did, but not this. I didn't have a connection with any of the characters, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, you see characters get killed and you don't really care about them, you don't like them, then it doesn't really matter. In Midsommar, you could kind of sympathize with the people that were being killed, or I could understand what the hell was going on. I was as weirded out as they were, type of deal.
Yeah, he was putting you in the same situation.
Yeah, right. So I could kind of understand, but there was just something about the characters in this movie I didn't really care about them. I didn't like the little girl. I didn't like the dude. I didn't like the mom or the dad.
Well, another thing, too, is that one of the points of the movie, and like I said, the reason it's called Hereditary, they're not just talking about the curse, like the cult that's, generational, but they're also talking about, like, a cycle of abuse, because the mom was, like, either, I don't know if she was necessarily physically abusive, but she was for sure, like, emotionally abusive. And then, like, the mom was, like, repeating the cycle without wanting to. So it was kind of, like, multi-layered. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so the fact that the family was so fragmented and didn't communicate with one another and were all like, that was what made them vulnerable to the demon.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because they didn't communicate with one another the way a family should. They were broken apart.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the point of them all being like that, was that was what made them a target. That was what made the cult able to infiltrate and do what they wanted to do, because these families were they were off doing their own thing, and there was so much hostility and like resentment and stuff between all of the characters because of all the shit that had gone on in the past. Yeah. So
I think I don't know where this is taking place, but having lived and worked in Massachusetts in the Wellesley, Weston, and Dover area, I dealt with a lot of upper class white families, New English families, and this family reminded me of that, and I never really liked them. They all kind of have a certain quality to them.
Well, sometimes too, it's like, I don't necessarily, and I've said this on some of my like book reviews, because sometimes you read a book and you don't like the characters, but I don't think you necessarily have to like the characters. If the characters are interesting, I don't have to like them. It doesn't really matter to me. It's like if it's a good story.
Yeah.
The Dude Abide says it's like we need to talk about Kevin. Yeah, that's kind of like a similar situation to that, where it's like I don't really think, and I've some of like one of the books that I reviewed, like Sharp Objects by what's her name, Gillian Flynn. It's like I didn't particularly like that character, but she was interesting enough and relatable enough that I wanted to know what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like everybody in that was kind of like a piece of shit. Yeah. But that it didn't bother me. So I don't necessarily have to like the characters to be into the story.
Yeah, me, I didn't. A lot of times when I was working, I was dealing with families, you know what I mean, that they've been wealthy for generations, but they're totally dysfunctional. And this kind of family reminded me of them. You know what I mean? And they're dysfunctional, but they look down their noses at you because you're not one of them. You know what I mean? And they all went to the right schools and shit. And there's just to me they were always kind of like a turn off, so that this family kind of struck me as people like that, so I just didn't really care. That's just personal though. I don't think other people would have that experience. It's just that was my interpretation. Where was this taking place?
Well, they shot it in Utah, but I don't think they really...
It wasn't supposed to be Utah.
No, I don't think they really said. I don't think it mattered.
I think it was supposed to be New England.
Maybe, but like I said, they shot it in Utah, so I don't really...
Probably Massachusetts, or... Probably Massachusetts is probably what it's supposed to be, maybe. It's hard to say.
Another thing I didn't quite pick up on the first time, but I picked up more the second time, was that the dad used to be Annie's psychiatrist. Yeah. And then they got married later on, like after they weren't seeing each other anymore. And I was like, well, that's a pretty fucked up dynamic too, because he acted like a lot more like a therapist than a husband. And that's why, because I didn't pick that up exactly the first time, because he's like writing an email to one of his colleagues like later, like, hey, I think my wife's losing her shit. You might want to like look into that. But yeah, so that was another thing. This is one that you can watch over and over, and there's like all these little details, and you pick up like more shit every single time. Just like The Shining, like I said, which I've probably seen 100 times, but every time I watch it, there's like new shit that turns up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Somebody said something about Saw.
Dude said, from a small town in Scotland. America scares the shit out of me. Dude, America scares the shit out of me, man. I'm from here.
Well, it depends where you go. America's a big country. There's like big. most of it is not scary.
There's 50 states here, man. Each one of these states is the size of a European country. People forget that. I think Texas is twice the size of Germany. And really, the only thing that they have in common is that they watch the same television and look at the same movies. But other than that, it's more regions. You know what I mean? A lot of your southern states in the southern regions are similar. New England states are kind of similar. There'll be differences in the cities, but the general culture is the same. The Midwest is all kind of the same. California is... Well, there's a difference between North and South California, Northern and Southern California, there's differences, but California is like its own country, Same as Texas. Texas is a part of the South, but it's like its own country. It's like It's like a mixture of the South and Mexico.
Yeah.
It's and it was that, and that's what it was. It was a joint venture between a real rich American family and a real rich Mexican family. It was having to do with the cattle business, and that was when Texas was first formed, a long time ago. So each little state is like it's in its own little world. You never know what you're going to find here.
Yeah, it's always a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, you can go to places out here in Florida, not far, just an hour or so from here, in these little nooks and crannies and houses out in the middle of the damn wilderness. We were going to see her mom, and we ended up in one of those places, and I'm like, no roads, it's just dirt. Dirt roads doing this, car almost getting stuck, and there's houses, you're in the middle of
somebody's. And that's only like an hour from here.
It's only like an hour away. And Jenny's like, get us out of here. I was like, I know, man.
I hear banjos.
And I'm from Mississippi, and that place kind of fucking had me a little bit spooked. They're harmless people. It's just that you never know what they think of you.
And there's no cell phone service either.
No cell. Yeah.
So that's a little...
Yeah, and that's their land, not yours, if you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's their place.
Yeah, they're like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
City folk.
Yeah, it's like some shit out of Star Wars,
Walking into the fucking Mos Eisley.
Mos Eisley fucking spaceport. You never know what, The locals have their own ways of doing things.
Which is probably just like kill you and bury you behind their trailer.
That's something that I've heard that evidently the Chinese fucking are terrified of getting outside of a city because it's not a police state. You know what I mean? Here in the United States, they're like, Moy, you could disappear in America, somebody could kill you, and no one would ever know. And that idea,
well, yeah, it happens all the time.
It happens all the time, and that keeps a lot of people in cities.
Well, I can't say I blame them because, like I said, I've been out to just some places out here, and I'm just kind of like, man, like somebody could murder me out here. Like I don't like going out there by myself. You don't know, you don't know what fucking crazy people are running around out there.
Yeah, well. Having grown up half the time in damn Mississippi, I was always packing anyway. This concept of calling the police to come help you, it doesn't really exist in most of the United States. People have to kind of take care of themselves. It's still a kind of a frontier type situation, even in these little small villages and towns like Heidelberg, Mississippi. Half them people are fucking carrying guns. Because there's 2 policemen for that town. One in the day and one in the night. And they're like, they're there to clean up the mess, and it's not violent. It's very peaceful. The crime rate is very low, and it's because everybody's watching their own back, and it's the population density is very very sparse.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you don't have that many people and they all kind of know each other,
then and they're all kind of looking out for each other. They're not hostile, but they don't like outsiders. Until they get to know you. If you give them a good story of why you're there, and okay, then it's okay. But they don't want people coming into their shit, fucking their shit up.
A couple people asked about Skinwalker Ranch. We did a show about Skinwalker Ranch, didn't we? I'm pretty sure we did a show about Skinwalker Ranch. It was probably a while back, but I'm pretty sure we did one.
Yeah.
All right, so are we done? Or are you
fucking Louis says I'd rather walk in downtown South Central than at night than in some of the rural areas anytime. Well, it depends, Louis.
I probably would too.
No, not me. There are places in Mississippi where you could just fucking walk and just not see anybody for a long, long time. Nobody bother you.
But it only takes one person to bother you, doesn't it?
Yeah, but like I said before, okay, Mississippi is a great example. It's the most armed state in the United States. It's also the poorest. All right, It has the largest black population, but it has the lowest crime rate, and it has the highest the highest gun ownership, but it has the lowest crime rate, and it's because the population density is so low. People aren't stressed out. They're poor, but the dollar buys a lot. I mean, for $350 a month in certain areas, you could damn near get an old Victorian mansion for that. In some of these areas, you couldn't air condition it. But, you could get a big old house for $400 a month in Mississippi. I just see if you can make $400 a month. It depends, But not, with the advent of the internet, that's possible. Hell yeah. But it was harder back then because you were dependent on local jobs. Not anymore.
Yeah.
So you could be a stockbroker downtown New York, and if you're working over a laptop, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, you could move to Mississippi and be one of the richest people in the state. Literally. You could be living in a giant mansion. The only thing close to that would be Mexico. Mexico, fucking dollar goes a long way in Mexico. Fucking Con was showing me what $1,500 a month buys in Mexico. A fucking palace. Yeah, twice as nice as this house.
Phil says, I found out that at state parks, every year at least 6,000 people disappear and they do not keep track of them.
Yeah.
That would not surprise me.
Yeah, but they're not dying from murder.
Well, no, not necessarily. They're probably just like
they're getting lost.
Yeah.
They're getting lost and they die of exposure. And if you die, even if you were to die in the woods, even just a mile from where we live right now, the chances of them finding your body would be slim. Because at night, the animals would come and tear you apart. They'd all run in different directions with you.
Possums, and they're talking about 70s serial killers.
Yeah.
Honestly, 70s and 80s were kind of like the heyday.
Yeah, that was the worst.
If you want to say. Yeah, I think as far as that goes, if I remember this correctly, I could be totally wrong, but I think the peak of serial killings was 87. That was the year that had the most. And then after that, it started declining. So yeah, the 70s... Like I said, might have been all that lead poisoning, might have been like cultural shit, might have been it was probably like a perfect storm of shit that all kind of came to a head during the 1970s, because that was kind of the fucking worst as far as serial killers, 70s and 80s. It's gotten better since then, so it's probably like considerably safer, at least as far as like serial killers are concerned.
Yeah.
Which, you know.
And serial killing was always like a suburban and urban thing. That's not all that rural. I mean, it happened in rural areas. It does. It's just not as likely. You got to have a certain amount of population density.
Yeah.
That's where the victims are.
Well, yeah, I mean, generally they're going to go like where there's a victim pool.
Right.
You know, to some degree.
Yeah.
All right, so we ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, we can wrap it up.
All right, so it's Tuesday, so that means tomorrow night is our sidetrack show at 5 p.m., 5 p.m. So yeah, we'll be drinking and talking about shit on there. Might talk about, who knows what we're going to talk about. Might talk about some more horror movies. Might talk about some other stuff. Man, I got to start watching. I'm recording a show in a couple weeks, and we're going to be talking about The Handmaid's Tale. So I really need to get on watching that, because I haven't even started watching it yet. Like I keep meaning to like watch it, but I just haven't had time, because I really want to watch it. I read the book a long time ago.
Did you get that super chat?
Where was it?
From No Need.
I don't know. It's
No
I think you were probably talking.
Yeah.
No Need for Me Too. Yeah. Thank you very much. Love the Star Wars reference. Can't stand the Disney Star Wars. Yeah. Yeah. I don't, like I said, I'm ambivalent about the Disney Star Wars. I know people get really, really butthurt about it, but I don't really care one way or the other. So, yeah. Dude Abide says, Ace, great show, peoples. We'll definitely subscribe and watch more. Well, thank you very much. We talk about a lot of creepy shit, true crime, horror movies. I love all that kind of stuff. So we will see you guys tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. We'll have a drink. We'll talk about whatever, like we usually do on Wednesdays. Tom might put some wigs on. It'll be super fun. I might put wigs on. I don't know, maybe not. We'll see how it goes. We never know what's going to happen. It's going to be a big surprise. All right, so thanks everybody for dropping by, and thanks for the super chats, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.